And we're live. Hey guys, welcome back to Critical African Thinkers. As you know, this is a place where we examine everything under the microscope of logic to ascertain what is most factual and logically consistent. So today I'm going to be reviewing an interaction between Patrick Bet Davis and Nick Fuentes, where both of them were sort of having an idiot's contest. Now they thought they were having some high level conversations, but it had to do with obviously with Nick Fuentes had to do with Jews and Muslims. And this clip says Jews concern me more than Muslims. Now, in this interaction, there is really one thing that stands out, which is Nick Fuentes' inconsistency, which in a way is reflective of his anti-Semitism, if you want to put it that way. Because his critique of Israel and of Jews, specifically of Jews, is not even Israelis. His critique of Jews from this interaction is inconsistent. So on one hand, he said that the major problem with Jews in America is that they refuse to assimilate. That if they just assimilated, if all groups in America just assimilated, multiculturalism, everybody just melt, having a melting pot, that would be great. But he says Jews don't do that. And a few minutes later, he blames Jews for multiculturalism in America. He blames Jews for making it possible for other ethnic groups to migrate to America. He blames them for reducing the quote unquote white heritage of America. So, which is it? Either way, he keeps blaming Jews. So, but let's just get into the conversation and see what he said.
What do you think about between the two communities, Muslim and Jews? Which one concerns you more?
Jews, for sure.
Tell me why.
More powerful. They're more powerful.
So more powerful in a way. You're talking the fact that they have money, finance, Hollywood. Is that what you're?
Yeah, they have more position in American society.
And so how do you think they got that?
Has this guy seen the Christians in power? Has Nick Fuentes ever, has he sat down to say, okay, let me look at the top billionaires in America and look at their religious affiliation? I'm pretty certain you're going to find out that most of them are Christian. Or look at the political establishment in America. I'm pretty sure you're going to find that most of them are Christian. So this idea that Jews have, I understand what he's saying, but so does Christians in America. So are you going to hold that against them? All right, let's go on.
That
I think they got it because they are extremely connected. They're a transnational entity. This is how the Rothschilds got started. Their superpower is that they live everywhere, and they have their Jewish identity supersedes their local identity. So a Jewish person in America or in Germany or in France or in the UK, they can all talk to each other and work together.
Do you think that's a bad thing?
Not in and of itself. It is detrimental for America, though.
Is it detrimental though? Because I'm a Syrian, right? Mm-hmm. And I wish Assyrians were more like this. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you why I relate to them. We don't have a country. Assyrians used to have a country. We used to be the first warriors. We were written about in the Bible. You read it all over the place. The history we had, the things we invented, and then we became a little cocky. And God came in and was like, listen, man, relax, Assyrians. You ain't going to come and be the king of the jungle. It's me. And you hear the stories about that they built the tower to go all the way to the top because we are Assyrians, and then we failed. It's like, no, look at you now. No one knows who Assyrians are. You don't even have a country, right? We know the land in Iraq or wherever you are. You don't have it anymore. I think when a community becomes too cocky, the man upstairs is going to handle that himself, right? But in a sense, when you see they went from a small community to have this much influence, isn't that almost impossible for them to pull off? Isn't that? So it either produces one of two things. I'm not intimidated. I'm not a guy that is envious or jealous or, oh my God, that guy's richer than me. That guy's this guy's, I'm not. I want to see what they did and what worked for them. For example, to me, when I think about Jews, I think about Mormons, I think about...
Dude, can you just get to the question already?
Scientologists. I used to have an office where half the office was all Scientology, and I learned all these phrases, assist, or, they I went to their church and I saw Dianetics and L. Ron Hubbard and what he would say when you get a headache, you do this and all these weird extras. I'm like, wow, interesting. How much money? We give $200,000. Why'd you give that? But let me tell you, those guys that were in, they had each other's back. It was a fraternity that you wish family members were like this, right? I think Scientologists have it, maybe more than Jews. So I think Jews will bite each other a little bit, not as much. And then Mormons have each other's back. Of course, there's a falling out as well where people come out and they'll talk about God makers or, what Gordon B. Hinckley. And I've read all of that stuff from over the years.
So the problem I'm having with this conversation, especially with what Nick Fuentes has said, with Jews being problematic, I think that's the case. I think the only way you can say Jews have been problematic for America, which I wouldn't really term Jews, is Israelis, right? It's because the Middle East is being driven largely by Israel, and that is creating a mess. That is ruining America's image in the Middle East, causing problems for America in the Middle East, and causing problems for other countries. But with Jews themselves within America, I don't see that problem. I don't know. Maybe you guys see it, but I don't see that problem. So if Nick Fuentes was very specific about what he was calling out, which is Israel, I would understand. But no, he specifically says Jews. Remember that no ethnic group is a monolith. None, no ethnic group, no identity. Black people are not a monolith. White people are not a monolith. So if it's not okay to pigeonhole black people or white people, why do you think it's okay to pigeonhole Jews to say they're responsible for this or that? It makes no sense.
But what's wrong with them winning at the highest level?
Well, I agree with you that it is remarkable and it is actually ominous how much they've achieved. Here's the problem, though.
One of the superpower of this guy, Nick Fuentes, is that he's obviously very smart and he will give you certain concessions just to make it seem like it's reasonable. Yeah, he's agreed with all these wonderful things that you've said about Jewish people, but these wonderful things you've said makes them much more ominous, and he's going to explain why he thinks that is the case. So it gives him this veneer of being balanced, someone who is not biased, someone who doesn't have an agenda, someone who is seeking the truth. But no, that's not what he's doing.
Because an open society, the premise of this country is it's self-government, of, by, for the people. There's a egalitarian idea that we are all citizens, and our government is going to be comprised of the citizenry of America. That's deeply embedded in who we are and in our government and our whole system. And take me, for example, I'm Italian, Mexican, and Irish. The Italians were very much like
Italian,
this when they
Mexican, and Irish. Do you know how white nationalists aren't white in the traditional sense of being white? I mean, look at the leader of the Proud Boys or so. That guy isn't white in the technical sense. Nick Fuentes now isn't white in the actual sense. People like Candace Owens aren't white. What is this? Why is it so? Why is this idea, this white nationalist idea, why is it so appealing to quote unquote non-white people?
they immigrated to America. They had in Chicago what they called the outfit, which was the mafia, and they looked out for each other. And when my grandfather died on my mom's side, I believe my grandmother got a loan from the outfit. And they would come by every month or whatever, and they'd bring a fruit basket, and they'd look after her, and they provided financially.
Was it Spilatra's group? Do you know the history of it, or was it Tony Spilatra?
I don't know who it was specifically.
Okay, got it.
But so these are some of the stories I would hear growing up from my mom and my grandmother.
So think about at that time, how many people were against Italians? At that time, how many people didn't like Italians in New York? Because Bank of America was first called Bank of Italy. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
So can you pull up, Rob? Was Bank of America first Bank of Italy?
Yes. Go.
Here, you guys are becoming too much power in New York. We're not happy about this. So there was some of that going on 100 years ago.
And that's what I'm saying is that did exist. And then what happened eventually is that Italians assimilated.
Okay.
Eventually, these
So this is
groups, these
where his inconsistencies will come in. Now he's talking about Italians assimilating into American society, and he's going to make the case that Jews should assimilate, that their problem is that they don't assimilate into American society. So let's hear this.
ethnic advocacy groups were broken up, if you could call the outfit that, or the mob of New York, and then Italians assimilated. And when I grew up, I saw myself as American. I didn't see myself as Italian American. I just saw myself as American. And I think that, when you see Jewish people working together, I don't think there's anything wrong with that inherently. And I agree with you. It's like a superpower. It's actually admirable in some ways. They look out for each other. But if society becomes, American society in particular, a place where every group is ganging up, well, we're the whites, we're the blacks, we're the Jews, then I think what America is starts to come apart, and it turns into kind of like a bit of a politicized race war. And I think that you either have to have a society where everybody gets to play by those rules and everybody could be pro what they are, or everybody is assimilated and we're all Americans. And
So
and
if
that's
I
why
get what Nick Fuentes is saying, is that he wants everybody to shed their ethnic identity and take up the American identity. Okay, pretty reasonable position, right? He wants Jews to assimilate. But the problem is, even with assimilated Jews in Nazi Europe and all those other times when Jews were being pogroms against Jews in Europe and other, many of them were assimilated. It didn't matter that they were assimilated. The founder of Zionism, political founder of Zionism, Theodor Herzl, was an atheist assimilated Jew who at first did not think that Jews needed a place to be safe. He shared his Jewish identity, took up a European identity, but the very fact that he had any Jewish affiliations overshadowed all that. So, yes, what you're saying makes sense. But in actuality, is it that Jews are actually separating themselves in American society? Do they really separate themselves? Uh, enough for it to be a problem.
why I say it's detrimental is that if Jewish people are Jewish first, not of, by, and for America, but of, by, and for the Jewish nation, this is problematic when they're in positions of power, because are they looking out for all of us, or are they looking out for themselves first? And when you look at the Israel policy, that's where people start to say, I think you're looking out for yourselves first. I think you're biased.
But you can't just stereotype. I do get that there are Jewish people who are pushing an Israel first agenda in the US. But you can't just say that is Jews. There are a lot of Jews that don't support what Israel is doing. Does their opinion not matter? Does their Jewishness not matter? You cannot just stereotype an entire group of people and hold them responsible for something.
And unfortunately, you're using the public purse and American soldiers to fight your own battles. And that's the problem. It's not, I don't have hatred for them. I don't have a problem with them in themselves or even what they do. It's just that with our system, that doesn't work.
You know what I would say to that as well? When, if they use the American soldiers in their advantage and all that other stuff. Okay. Who negotiated that deal? Some president negotiated that deal. Someone said yes to it.
I really can't stand this Patrick guy. His voice is so irritating and grating, so I just have to move him along.
Give protection, that if we can go to Gaza, show it to her. I want to see the stuff. I want to go with my pastor. So is it Israel or is it the girl? Do you understand what point I'm trying to make here?
Absolutely.
So to me, it's kind of like, I mean, look, if you said Israel over Muslims, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which of the two do you think has been a bigger net positive to America?
Oh, it has to be Israel, absolutely.
Okay, so a part about that part.
But, well, in terms of, I wouldn't say net positive. I would say in terms of raw, maybe like gross positive. Because they've had a lot of contributions culturally and even, in terms of art, literature, music, also scientifically. But it's difficult to say on that because I also think that there's quite a bit of a detriment. I think that the melting pot comes from the Jewish community.
What do you mean by that?
The idea of the melting pot, that comes from a Jewish playwright. Because Jewish people come to America and like all immigrants, they say, well, we want America to be more welcoming. So they start to spin up these ideas that, America was never this country of white Christians. It's always been a melting pot for all immigrants. They want the country to be more open because that makes it more comfortable for them. It makes it more tolerant for them. But this has also made us more open and tolerant for Muslims, for example.
So, did you just catch that? Did you catch that cognitive dissonance? Now he's blaming Jews for America being a melting pot, while initially he had argued for America to be a melting pot, for all cultures to come together to embrace the American identity. So, which is it, Nick? Are Jews responsible for America being a melting pot, or are they responsible for not wanting to assimilate into American culture? You can't have it both ways. And this just exposes him, exposes that whatever he's saying, he's not saying it from a genuine place. He's just using smart words. And of course, Patrick Bet David is too stupid to pick that up. He just let it go. You can't be accusing the same people of, you accuse one people of two contradictory things. Now, is it possible that there's some Jewish people who are guilty of whatever you're talking about? Yes. Even in Nazi Germany, some of the things that the anti-Semites were talking about, there were some Jewish people who were actually guilty of that. But you do not, on the basis of the actions of a few individuals, take action against an entire group of people. Take the night of broken glass, for example, in Germany. That was a reaction to a Jewish extremist assassinating a German politician in France. That was one person, and then the Germans back in Germany just went on a rampage against Jews. So imagine if someone, if some a white Christian person does something, is that enough to attack Nick Fuentes and his family, to attack other white Christians, just because someone who shares their religious or ethnic identity does something bad? I mean, take a look at yourself and see the mess that white Christian people have done around the world. I don't think there is any demographic who has done more harm in absolute terms than people who identify as white and Christian. Talk about whatever you want to talk about. Talk about neo-colonialism today. Talk about what's happening in Gaza. But Nick isn't going to look at that and say white Christian people are a problem. No. Why?
Example. We're bringing, I mean, who's been the biggest driver of like the Hart-Celler 65 Immigration Act? It was like the SPLC, which is run by Jewish lawyers. And so they're major drivers of mass migration. They're also major drivers of the pro-Israel politics, like the Iraq War. It was many Jewish journalists and pundits and advocates.
Sure.
So a point being is like when you
So the
calculate
problem with people with Nick Fuentes is that they will sprinkle a little bit of truth here and there to get you hooked, and then they will just spread a whole lot of falsehoods and what have you. Let's say Jews had something to do with the Iraq War. Would have, they had agency. So where's the agency they have in the Republican Party? Where is their agency in such situations? Or you want to say the Afghanistan war was also started by Jews?
on net, and I agree with you. Like, I think there are a lot of people that are critical of Israel that are reluctant to acknowledge the good that Jews do. And I think that Jews are, they're brilliant. Many of them are brilliant.
So when I'm saying net positive, I'm talking jobs, economy. How often you hear about crime, what they do?
Is
like
that the worth of a human being? Is that the worth of a community? Should only be accorded
if you have a choice between living in a city in Minnesota, Dearborn, and living in, I don't know what's the biggest city. What's the city that Boca Raton, let's just say, right? Uh, 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 if you have a choice between raising your family between Dearborn and Boca Raton, where do you choose?
Do you want to post trend?
Yep. So, hey, look, Bovine, how you doing? So that's when you listen to conversations like this, it seems as if they're heading somewhere. It seems as if they have something substantive to say, but by the end of the day, they're just chasing their tails because Nick contradicted himself, and PBD wasn't smart enough to figure that out. He wasn't smart enough to figure that out. There are a lot of anti-Semites who hide behind the criticism of Israel to push their anti-Semitism. It's giving them cover. Is an abomination. What Israel is doing in terms of capturing the American political machinery is not good. But then there are also very, very real concerns of anti-Semitism. And many people, many anti-Semites, many gripers. Anyway, that's what I just wanted to share today. Luke Bovine, thanks for coming around. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in another live stream. It's bye for now.